As I said, we're going to finish out this month with the theme of creativity. Um, Next month, we're going to actually work on emotions, which I'm really excited about the month of May and the theme for May. But let's close out creativity first. And in the first Sacred Cup discussion, so if you don't know, every morning, every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, we meet and talk about the lesson. We talk about the theme and have these great discussions. And the first one of this month, when we talked about creativity, I asked the question, what is your relationship with creativity? And we were going around the circle that morning, and everyone was sharing things like, I don't think I'm creative. I'm not creative. I'm not creative. They said they couldn't draw. They weren't talented in some way. No one in that particular group that morning felt like they had a lot of creative gifts to share, right? Maybe you can relate, and maybe you feel that same way, that you see creativity um, and as the theme, and you're like, that doesn't really have anything to do with me. I'm not an artist. I'm not a creative person. I don't have any outlet for any traditional creativity. The vast majority of us probably took our last art class at some point in high school or middle school, right? And our adult responsibilities have kind of edged out any time that we would have for true creativity. And I can relate. The word creativity to me meant art. And I stopped art in my life many, many years ago. I think I did some cross stitching in college, maybe, but pretty much a few pottery outings here and there. And my artistic endeavors kind of stopped for many decades. And when I came into this spiritual teaching, the word creativity is used so much. Ernest Holmes really liked the word creativity, and he really felt like that was one of the gifts of being human, and that we partner and we co-create with the divine. And I look back on my early writings about creativity in classes and things like that, and I just really had a hard time figuring out how creativity was really about life, was actually about life. So if you let go of this narrow definition of creativity having something to do with paint or music or art or whatever, and see that it's a concept that is active in your life, you are creative. You're creating by the choices that you make every day. Your life is your creation. Your relationships are your creation. Your tendencies and preferences are your creation. Your responses are your creation. You are creative. And my talk title today is Recycling the Box. And I chose that title because I think recycling is one of the coolest and most powerful ways that we get to create. Speaking of art classes, I remember in one of my last high school art classes, our teacher, and I had her name a minute ago and now I lost it again, Shirley Atkins, something like that. Anyway, she brought in this big box of what looked like to be scraps of wood from some woodworking project or something that someone did. It was like a bunch of random things. And she said, using whatever you find in this box, create something. Create whatever you can think of. I'm like, what? Like, there's no pattern to follow. There are no instructions. There's no like thing that I can accomplish. Like I can't compare myself and what I create to the person next to me. Like, I don't know what are the expectations here. So I ended up creating this little sailboat with a little piece of wood and a dowel that was like cut off, and I made string art sails or whatever. I can tell you it was the hardest art project I ever had because I had to recycle something to create something new. And there's a shop down in Sarasota that I love. And this particular shop is full of things that are examples of recycling, like typewriter keys become pieces of jewelry, or, old kitchen utensils are displayed in some really fun way. Rusty horseshoes are welded together. You know what I'm talking about. You get the picture. And I love those kinds of shops because they allow people to salvage something seemingly useless to create something unique and beautiful, or at least amusing, if nothing else. Maybe it reminds me of my little sailboat. I don't know. But I know that they were challenged. Their imaginations had to be challenged. And teachers, there's teachers in the room. Y'all are famous for that. You can make things out of toilet paper rolls and all kinds of things, aluminum foil. And artists, we walked around a little art festival yesterday, and there were things that were made out of other things, like broken things were made. I don't know. It's just amazing. What kind of brain sees the possibility when they look at things that seem to have no potential, things that other people have thrown away? And I think we can all develop that kind of a mind, that kind of thinking, and most of us practice it already. Here's my point. You've already demonstrated your ability to create. Look around your life. It's what you have created. All around you are objects and people and situations that you call your life, that you have pulled together and created. You chose each of these elements in your life. And when we talk around here about creating something new, when I'm teaching that, often the pushback I get the most is, but what about the things that are already in my life now? I'm kind of used to my job or my house or the kids. I kind of like them. I don't want something entirely new, Reverend Laine. I can't just start over. Who can do that? I'm too old to start over. Can you relate to that? Right? So one of the fastest ways you can transform your life is to repurpose the things you already have for a greater good. And on the surface, you do that all the time. You do it all the time. You rearrange your furniture. You don't just go out and buy all brand new furniture. You rearrange it. You put this in this room and that in the other room, You unexpectedly do new things with old friends. You find an innovative way to repurpose objects around you all the time. You go to the same places, but you change your routine, or you drive a new route to a familiar place. You repaint your room, as the song said, strip the wallpaper, swap clothes with your sister, whatever. You are repurposing, recycling. It's just a part of recreating your life in small ways. So please tell me you know who Chip and Joanna Gaines are. Right, okay, so they're these miracle, if you don't, they're people like, no, I've never met them. They're these miracle designers on HGTV. They have a show called Fixer Upper. And those two can take the most absolute ugliest house on the block and turn it into the most adorable home you could ever imagine, and for the new owners. And they do it fast. They're famous for using old architectural throwaway stuff in these charming ways, and they use a ton of whatever is shiplap, whatever that is. They use it every single week, and I can't wait till the end of the show when they reveal all the before and after pictures as the people walk around their new house. America has been fascinated with this TV show for years, and I know I'm not the only one who watches it, but we love it. Why do we love it? We love it because, I think we love it because we see the potential for our own home, don't we, right? If that really broken down old house in Waco can become that, then my house is not so bad. I bet I could do something with it. I might even be able to hang some shiplap. We love it because it's inspiring. It's inspiring. It seems to be a kind of a creative transformation that is within our reach. We could watch other HGTV shows where they're selling multi-million-dollar beach houses or whatever, and that's sort of relatable, but not really. But I can relate to a little house in Waco becoming a nicer place, right? I think it seems more possible. But do you know what the Gaines, Chip and Joanna Gaines, do you know what their secret is? Their secret is, I've already mentioned it, they live in a mindset of possibility. Everything they look at, they're asking, what's possible here? What's possible? And if you watch the show, sometimes one of them will see the possibility and the other one won't. They're like, you're crazy. That is not going to happen. Usually it's Joanna has a good idea and Chip's like shaking his head. But they'll kind of debate back and forth of what's possible, but they almost always err on the side of the person who sees the most possibility. They're like, if you can see it, I know we can make it happen. They have faith in each other's vision. This is a show about recycling an ordinary box of a fixer-upper house And all of us have created a place where we live, and most of us have an inner nudge to fix it up. And we love being inspired by what the Gaines do. And guess what? We have also all created our lives just as they are right now. And maybe you think of your life as a fixer-upper, right? I think most of us do. You know, we wish Chip and Joanna Gaines could just move into our very lives and work their magic. And since that's not possible, I want to talk to you about some things that you can actually do for yourself. But before you even begin, I want to get you into this spiritual mindset of possibility. We're going to start with the Bible. Shock of all shocks, I know I don't do Bible scripture very much, but Matthew 19:26 says, with God all things are possible. Remind yourself that you're working with the powerful intelligence that created everything seen and unseen. And as you take the next steps, just keep yourself centered in that possibility. Spirit only sees possibility. So what do Chip and Joanna Gaines do first? They walk around the house assessing what is there. They look at the walls, they look at the roof, they look at the steps, the landscaping, everything. They look at everything, and they're looking for what elements of this house can we keep? Can we enhance and embellish? What needs to be absolutely changed completely or removed? And what do they want to work with and not work with? And if you're going to recreate yourself in your life, that's going to be your first step too. You're going to be looking at all the different elements of everything you have going on. The relationships, the way you spend your time, the spiritual practice that are or are not happening, the things you talk about, the structures that your life revolves around, your finances, everything. And when you take your assessment, you're going to find some things you really love. There will be parts of your current life that you appreciate and you want to strengthen them or highlight to give them more visibility. There'll probably be some parts that you want to remodel or move around some or repurpose, and there are likely going to be some things that you want to just go ahead and let go of. And I called this talk Recycling the Box because I want you to fully understand that almost everything you have going on right now does not need to be thrown away. Almost every element of your life can be recycled or repurposed in some way to express greater love, fulfillment, balance, or whatever it is you're wanting to have more of. Chip and Joanna Gaines see the value and the possibility of a house that has been well lived in. I invite you to see the value of the life you are well living in. As you grow and you evolve and remodel your life, I invite you to see possibility and promise in every little nook and cranny. And as I said, sometimes they borrow each other's faith, and you might have to do that too. You can work with someone else who sees possibilities in your life that you might not be able to see, whether that's a therapist or a practitioner or a coach or whatever, a teacher, a mentor, whoever you can find that can see something bigger for yourself than you can see. All these kinds of people are around you if you avail yourself to them. Listen to them. Don't argue for your limits. Don't argue for the way things are. Allow things to change. The truth is your life isn't bigger because you can't see a bigger life as possible. The most inspirational stories to me are of people who've made their mess their message. I'm going to give you an example. Have you ever heard of Grandin? Dr. Grandin is one of the top scientists. That's how I feel about her too. One of the top scientists in the humane livestock handling industry. She has a PhD in animal science from the University of Illinois, and she's a professor at Colorado State University. She's authored 6 books, including 2 bestsellers. Grandin is autistic. She's autistic, and she says, autism is part of who I am. Her disability is actually the gift that allows Grandin to understand and translate animal behavior. She has changed livestock handling and influenced an entire industry. She is the person that when livestock are being moved They move them now in a spiral pattern instead of a chute, because the cattle will walk in a circle much more easily than they will walk in a straight line. There's less resistance to it. I watched a movie about her life several years ago, and I was inspired by her ability to find her path through her autism, through it, not around it, but through it. She saw possibility where everyone else saw limitation. She used the structure of her own unique self to benefit herself and others. She repurposed this part of herself. You know, when I decided to address my own life as a fixer-upper like 20 years ago, when I found spirituality, I had to see where I really was. I had to really look around, right? I had to take into consideration my special needs daughter, you know, my unexpected divorce, my religious wounding as a child, you know, all these elements of my life. I had to think about them and really figure out, how could I repurpose them? How could my mess become my message? How could I use what I've lived through to help someone else? How could I recycle the box and make something bigger and more useful and more meaningful? So I began to look at the elements of my house. I put on my Chip and Joanna Gaines glasses and I said, what do I have here? I decided to keep my career. You know, I was 13 years into it, what turned out to be a 25-year career. However, I knew I needed to recycle it a little bit. At some point along the way, I had grown to dislike my job very much, and so I recycled it and I made my work my ministry. I began to have these really powerful conversations at work that led me to a lot of the work that I do now. It became more meaningful and satisfying to me. You know, over time, I shifted my friendships and relationships away from drama-oriented, kind of judgmental people to more spiritual and loving people. They served my life better. I realized some new walls or boundaries needed to be built to create a more appealing space in my heart and in my mind. And I listened to a call deep inside me to move back to Atlanta. I had migrated to the West Coast and I wanted to come back east, and I allowed that change to happen. I repurposed and reinvented that part of my life. And I'm sure the before and the after pictures will be really interesting to look at, my life before and my life after my Chip and Joanna Gaines moment with myself. You know, I still consider my life to be a fixer-upper. You know, we're always adjusting things, and I love that Spirit helps me see greater possibilities all the time. But the point is to keep recycling, to become closer and closer to your truest and highest self, to create more beauty in your world. And some of the greatest creativity does not occur when an artist is making something all fresh and new. Although that's a wonderful way to create, not a problem, but most of us can't start with a brand new canvas of our lives, right? Most of us are called to recycle the box, so to speak, to repurpose everything we have already created. You know, I was making the point the other day that, you know, making a fresh pot of soup with a recipe is so nice and tidy, it's all perfect. But have you ever noticed, or maybe you've never had this experience, but when I worked at a culinary school, one of the most challenging things was when the soup that they were making would get too salty. And they would pull in one of the chef instructors to that situation, because that moment called forth great creativity. You had to get creative because what you have right now is not working, and you have to keep adding things, whether it's rice or potatoes or more water or whatever is necessary to create. But more creativity is needed in that moment than in the original making of the soup. So it takes that willingness to think outside the box in order to recreate something. But let's remind ourselves of one of our principles that we talk about a lot. I believe that this power is love, and it creates out of a desire to express love. That's one of our principles. So when you are assessing your life and figuring out what to keep and what to repurpose and what to release, ask yourself this question. If my purpose is love, and I create out of a desire to express love, What in my life supports me being a loving force in my world, and what does not? In our Sacred Cup this morning, we talked about becoming a channel through which God can flow love out into the world. What parts of my life encourage that flow, and what parts block it? If your job allows you to express love and be love, keep it. It's a wall that can support you. If your relationships challenge your ability to flow the energy of love, pay attention to the shifts that might need to occur. Move the boundaries if necessary to be able to love yourself and the other person more. If your routine gives you sufficient time to keep yourself all balanced, keep it. But if not, try to figure out what things you might have outgrown or no longer serve their intended purpose in your life, and release them to create more balance and space. All creation, and all recycling for that matter, starts with an inner yes. We have to say yes to a new way of existing, a higher possibility, and the willingness to be in the mess of a life remodel, because it gets messy. Dare to tell the spiritual truth about your life so that you can begin to tell a creative truth about your life. It's time to not just think or live outside the box. We need to reevaluate the box, recycle the pieces, and repurpose the space where the box was sitting. It's time to get out that shiplap and fix her up. Will you join me in prayer? Thank you. Here's what I know. I just sit in that moment of possibility. Possibility. Everywhere I look, I invite Spirit to train my eyes to see possibility. I invite Spirit to loosen my grip on everything as it is so that repurpose and recycling can occur. And I know this for each one present. I know that Spirit gives those divine ideas to us, gives those inner nudges to move and shift and create more love. And so today I intend to listen to that inner nudge, that inner urging to recreate and recycle wherever I can. And I know that for each one. I know that God blesses each one of us as we move forward from this place and we take these words with us. And so it is.